It's the SKOR North Twins Show.
SKOR North Twins Show. Twins are in Fort Myers. I'm also in my own version of Fort Myers, I guess. I'm in a makeshift
this is
studio.
Old school, man.
Yeah, the 1500 ESPN banner that you can see behind me here. This is our old production studio. Our current studios are being completely renovated, and we're swapping. We're batting right-handed, then left-handed, and then we're going to be a switch hitter again. We're basically learning how to hit from both sides of the plate. Giggity, here on the SKOR North Twins Show.
Yeah, this is so for the YouTube audience. Dex has the old 1500 ESPN. That is a 15-year-old 1500 ESPN sign. I think that's considered vintage. I think 15 years vintage.
Sure, why not?
Judd and Mackie and Judd with their one share back in the day can autograph that for you.
Yeah, look at
you guys failed on the radio.
Your ratings are awful. One share. I take a one share.
Oh man. So yeah, Dex is holding it down in the old 1500 ESPN side studio today. Very exciting.
So, boys, let's get into some stuff that we've learned from spring training as players have reported here. Also, I figured we talked about this last week because we have the baseball sound effect from A-Rod, which is always a great one to transition. But I, for the first time, opened up my Adobe Audition multi-track and decided, what are some sounds from spring training? You guys mentioned the leaf blower that's always blowing from Hammond Stadium. I figured out some, maybe some lawn mowers. What are some baseball sounds, you ask?
Oh, cleats.
Yep.
Oh.
Larry DeVito getting set to mow the grass.
Is it a leaf blower? Sprinkler?
Yeah. Yep. Oh. George Toma, hard at work.
That's pine tar.
Oh, just racking the bat with some pine tar. Let's go.
Catch.
Oh.
Bat and glove, some catch. Yeah, so those are some spring training sounds. A little bit of pepper.
I thought I heard a batting practice home run off Louis Varland in there too. If you listen.
Why?
Wow.
Why would you do that? we just put together the sounds of spring training.
Off Chris Paddock. I don't mean to pile on Louis Varland.
Well, speaking of hitting philosophies and hitting bombs, so let's start with the hitting approach because I think this is something that's worth leading off with, pun intended. So Matt Borgsgulte has come in here. They blew out the hitting coaches from the Popper and Derek Schulman, and now Matt Borgsgulte is in there. And he said, quote to the Star Tribune, it's going to be a little different for some guys in terms of the approach, but I think it's going to be something that is going to help us. And seeing the ball off the bat is great for the whole team. This includes the idea of doing more BP. So according to The Athletic, here's the Twins batting practice plan. It's a 5-phase plan each day. So here's what they do I love it. In the first 2 rounds, they work on hitting the ball to the opposite field. That's what they do in the first 2 rounds. They try to go the other way with the ball. In the 3rd round, it's about putting the ball up the middle and trying to put it where you're supposed to shorten up the swing a little bit as Judd grabs his own bat. He's going to shorten up the swing.
This is what we did. We did this in high school. Our old high school, like we had an amazing Legion coach.
I thought the same thing when I was reading what.
Dude, shout out Scott Bauer. It was. I don't care if you're a big, if you're the size of a left tackle and all you want to do is pull the ball. You have to hit the ball to the second baseman for the first round of BP. I love this.
And then the final 2 rounds of the 5-round plan, players get to select what they want to do from there for rounds 4 and 5. So whether that's pulling balls, whether that's continuing to go the other way,
strikeouts,
they get or striking out, swinging out of their shoes, because Rocco absolutely can't stand that. And Rocco said that I'm thinking about talking about the game within the game, knowing when to do one thing and knowing when to do another, knowing when to shorten it up. You're going to see it in some of the work on the field. You're going to see it in our schedule. What we're going to ask them to do behind the scenes in meetings and things we preach, they are completely overhauling. I mean, things are now, like Correa said, things are mandatory now in terms of batting practice and field work and being out there early. They're now out there a whole hour earlier than they typically have been at spring training. So the Twins lineup and offense on paper is supposed to be really damn good, right? The injuries are going to be a thing that we're still going to have to watch. But clearly preparation is the thing that they are changing from what they did from previous regimes under David Popkins and now under the new regime in Matt Borgsgulte.
Can I give my 2 cents here? Because I think that this goes deeper than philosophical changes, which, by the way, I think are really intriguing, because some of obviously what Declan just went through that they're going through is would be considered old school, right? Like, we're working on going the opposite way for 2 rounds of BP. And Dex, I'd be curious if you agree with this, but I think part of this is accountability that they sort of didn't have. Like, it did feel like when things went south last year, starting in August, correct? Or started to. It felt like there was a lot of guys sort of doing what they wanted, and that they had made up their own rules and when I'm going to hit and when I'm not going to hit. And if you're winning, that's, that works, right? But one of the things that struck me about this plan, which does not involve the pitchers, but definitely involves the hitters, is, how many guys, spring trainings, did we hear where Rocco's trying to get guys off their feet? He doesn't want to play guys too much. Mm-hmm. He's worried about this. He wants to, sleep in. I want you all to sleep in because we've gone through the sleep cycle thing, and it's very important. And I'm not saying it's not, but this feels to me like, in part at least, and it's the unsaid thing because you're not going to go back and rip the players from last year. This feels to me like an accountability thing, like the mandatory, like we're going to hit as a team. We're going to work on how we run the bases as a team. So I think the starting point is Rocco and the coaching staff trying to regain some control that they felt that they forfeited last year, and that at the end of the day, they feel like the players took advantage and they're not going to have that happen again.
Yeah, the Dodgers don't sleep, by the way. They just wait for the next game.
And just sign a guy who slept.
Yeah.
Hey, if you got a solid 8 last night, here's $2 million.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. And I think Judd's interpretation of the methodology behind this, we're going to change things up. We're going to overhaul the hitting coaching staff. I think there's some strategic things in there that I'd like to point out, but also this team has melted down in the second half of the season in September, 2 of the last 3 years, where it looks like, oh man, this is a legit contending team. 2022 and 2023, they did get in and they won their first playoff series and everyone was excited. And then ownership stepped in and stripped payroll. But in 2022-24, this team, some of it was injuries. Some of it was just everyone stopped producing in the second half of the season. And there has to be some thought about how can you not slam into a wall in the middle of August or September. It's for the Twins to figure out the why there. Some of it is injuries. When Carlos Correa is your best player for 3 months and then he's unavailable after the All-Star break. When Royce Lewis is, I don't know, just sort of running out of gas in the second half of the season, it's hard to just replace those 2 dudes. Those are 2 of the best players in baseball when they're at their peak. But the opposite field stuff, like I made a joke about, that's what we did in high school. But it is interesting if you go back to the pre-Target Field Twins teams, the Piranha team from the mid 2000s, 2006, and even the 2009 team, the last team in the Metrodome. You go to Baseball Reference and you can look up opposite field hit percentages, like what percentage of your contact is opposite field versus pull. Philosophically, it is a 180-degree difference now versus that style of. Now, there's a bunch of different styles of ways you can win baseball games. There's no one cookie-cutter way. But the Twins had their most success, different stadium, and there might have been strategy to, hey, this is a fast track. Let's hit the ball on the ground and let it leak through. But they were top 3, top 5 perennially, 2006, 2009, and the years in between in hitting the ball the other way. Last year, the Twins were the 3rd most pull-happy team in all of baseball. And I know on Dex's prep rundown here, you're going to get into stolen bases, and I don't want to jump the gun here, but I think as a team, offensively, you have to ask yourself, what are we going to be great at? What are we going to be? And there's been a couple years in the Derek Falvey regime where, like the 2019 team, it's leaned into, we're going to be great at hitting bombs. And in 2019, they were the best team in the biggest home run season in Major League Baseball history. But if you kind of look through, and they've got some talent, like you got Correa, you got some good young hitters, Matt Wallner and Royce Lewis, and there's some guys in this lineup. I mean, hell, Ryan Jeffers. But the Twins last year, fewest stolen bases in Major League Baseball. So we don't believe in putting ourselves out there on the base paths. They are not a great base running team, not a great stolen base team. Okay, so you're kind of a station to station. Let the big thumpers knock in runs, right? Well, they were 11th in slugging, 14th in homers, so not terrible, but certainly not a top 10 power offense. 11th in OPS. Yeah, but what about let's put the ball in play, right? Let's put the ball in play and make the other team have to field it and create outs. Well, they were 18th in contact rate, 20th in hard hit rate, bottom third of the league in batting average and OPS with runners in scoring position. So some of this is just you need talent to increase these numbers. But I like the fact that they're going back to the drawing board a little bit and deciding philosophically and then getting guys healthier too. What do we want to be offensively? We're not a great base running team. We're not all that athletic, at least going into this season, last season. We're not really a great power hitting team. So like the Guardians and the Royals were below average OPS teams, but they were aggressive on the base pass. They stole a bunch of bases, and they wind up averaging about the same number of runs per game as the Twins did. So I'm all for it. I'm all for going back to the drawing board and figuring out what do you want to be as an offensive team?
And there was so many times pregame, postgame last season where Rocco would talk about knowing what to do in situations. That goes back to his quote that I read about knowing the game within the game. And it's not pulling the ball. It's not swinging out of your shoes. I think they had much more individualized plans too, in terms of David Popkins with these hitters. This seems to me like from Borgsgulte, this is much more of a broader approach. There's definitely individual things that you have to work on with each hitter, and not every hitter is created equal. But it feels like there's a much more broader approach of what they want to do. And Borgsgulte, worked with all those studs in Baltimore and Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman. And I know Jackson Holliday didn't get off to a great start, but there was a ton of top prospects, top first-round picks that Baltimore has turned into very good players that Borgsgulte was a part of over those last few years. Same can be said about the Twins, from the Royce Lewises and the Brooks Lees, the Matt Wallners, et cetera, that there's a similar pedigree there. So I think it's something to watch throughout the season. I'm kind of curious to learn more about those hitting philosophies. But I'm very curious to see the other approaches that work for them and what things they can really hang their hat on.
I also think that there is, so if you go back to last year, okay, when Correa was playing, like this team, he was great, and this team was very solid. But I think the reality that probably sunk in too was, if you think about it from a standpoint of trust, Carlos Correa was treated the same as, like, everyone had their plan. I should say the rest of the roster was treated like him. And so it's like everyone sort of just had their own plan. And for Correa, and like if Buxton's going well, that works. They're professionals. They know what they need to get done. But like that's a big trust to put in Brooks Lee. Like Brooks Lee's treated the same as, it's like, so I think that in some ways Popkins paid the price for a philosophical view of how to treat people, that they came to a realization that this doesn't really work. And one thing that I think you can say too, especially when Correa went out, was this was not a very smart baseball team. They don't run the bases particularly well. Like they make it. So I like this whole thing of basically saying, no, we're all going to at least be on the same page. Because the one thing that really struck me as the meltdown continued was this team, from at least a hitting standpoint, was not on the same page at all. Like you had guys, and that's why guys were bitching and moaning and complaining, right, Dex? So like I like the standpoint of you have to earn that trust. It feels like going back to Rocco's first year, that trust was given, and it worked then, in part because why? Nelson Cruz ran that team. But once Correa was out, that was gone. And so I just like this whole thing of we're going to treat you equal, but you're all going to have to do the same thing. And that's going to be on our page, our timeline, not your timeline.
Two things I'd love to steal from the Orioles from last year. And again, some of it is
which players
you can talk about. Well, that's the thing. It's like, okay, you can steal a hitting coach, but hitting coaches, it should be emphasized, hitting coaches in baseball are not nearly as influential as like an offensive coordinator in football or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So some of it's just who's on the field producing. But the Orioles last year were third in hard hit rate percentage and second in 2-out hitting in the American League OPS. So they were great with 2 outs, and they were great squaring it up, finding that pitch that they like to hit. So some of that's prep work, some of it's just talent. So if you could wind up getting better in some of those niche situations. And I mean, hell, everyone wants to square up more baseballs and everyone wants to be better with 2 outs. How much can a hitting coach and a change in philosophy and spring training preparation help you with that? I guess we'll find out.
On the stolen base front, so last season, the Twins stole 65 bases, which ranked dead last among the 30 teams in baseball. And I believe under Ball Delhi, this was from Phil Miller, the Twins have averaged 54.2 successful steals per season. The other 29 teams have averaged 95.4. And by StatCast measurements, Twins base runners ran an average of 26.8 feet per second last year. No team was slower on the bases.
So like, when wow, that's amazing.
It's so and look, they brought in Harrison Bader, who can steal some bags. Willie Castro can steal some bags. It's what do you want to do with Buxton on the bases? Because Buxton, on paper, is a threat on the bases. But do you want to put him in harm's way to steal bases? And I know Moneyball is kind of a little against sometimes the idea of being aggressive on the base pass because you're potentially just giving the other team outs in an easier way. But the Twins were we just saw it. We're the slowest team in baseball last year. And going back to changing philosophies, if as much as people rag, how do the Guardians do this every single year? They foul ball you to death. They make contact. They move people over, and it works for them. They can have some random dude batting second that you've never heard of that is going to see 8 pitches in an at-bat. So I think the Twins also putting an emphasis, whether it's Bader and Castro and maybe Buxton, being more of a threat on the base paths this season is also probably a thing they have to explore to maybe at least be better at, not be the best at.
So that would be great. And I like the thought, but can we expand this to be being smarter, first to third more often? Like the stolen base thing is the low hanging fruit, right? Because it's an obvious statistic and it's absorbed by every baseball fan. And I get that. And I would like to see them run more, but I am far more concerned about making the right play on going first to third, second to home. If you steal bases, that's great. But if you are a smarter team and you run the bases in a smart way, and by the way, I mean, this team has had some of the best guys at that. Joe Mauer was a wizard. Molitor's probably one of the best of all time. And he's around. So the stolen bases, I would like to see them increase. I'm not too concerned about Buxton. Like, if he wants to steal, that's okay. If he doesn't, that's okay. But what I'm more concerned about is how do you run the bases? And most importantly, do you take the extra base when possible? And do you not run yourself into stupid outs?
Yeah, it's, man, the stolen base thing is kind of wild because baseball created the new larger bases and it made it a little, and also like with the pickoff rules and stuff, they're trying to make it easier for teams to steal bases. It's like when the NFL created some different rule changes to make it easier. All right, you can't hit quarterbacks low or high, and you can't target receivers anymore. Over a few different years, they implemented these because we want quarterbacks to be healthy and we want passing games excelling are better for the TV product. So we're basically telling NFL teams, throw the ball. And it would be like if that happened and your favorite NFL team decided, we're actually going to throw the ball less because it scares us. It's risky. You might throw an interception.
That was him. He did it.
It kind of was. And they had such a great defense that, they kind of made it work. But
yes,
all these new rules, and other teams have said, Dex laid out the numbers for the Twins, but like last year, so the Twins stole 65 bases to what Declan said. The teams at the top of the league were stealing 220 bases in a year. In fact, on top of the Twins only stealing 65 bases, they had one of the lowest success rates when they tried because, to the evidence of them being slow, some of it's less on why don't you strategically try more stolen bases and more on it's like a personnel question of why don't you have faster guys on your team that can take the extra base or steal a base in a one-run game in the seventh. You're looking to add an insurance run, right? So that is the Guardians, another great example. We went over like some of the outfield defensive run saved metrics. Like how are the Guardians such a better team than the Twins in these years where you see this roster of random dudes? You say, oh, well, they saved 50 extra runs defensively. And then you look last year, the Guardians stole 80 more bases than the Twins did last year, 83 more bases with a pretty damn good success rate too. So that's just another man and on the Buxton question, I'm kind of at the point with him now where unleash him. Just unleash him. I'm not worried. Okay, he might sprain a thumb sliding into second base. Okay, well, he's going to miss 50 games minimum regardless. So you might as well maximize what he's giving you in the 75 to 90 games that he's going to play. He should have the green light more often.
But Dex, this is a question too of like aggressiveness, right? And smarts. Like, seriously, going back to Baldelli's first year here, how many really smart teams when it comes to approaching the bases, as far as going again, first to third, stealing bags, how many smart teams has he had? I think it's been very low. Like, I think they have been some of the like bad news bears. So that to me is like the stolen bases will come if you're aggressive and smart, but the Twins really, it feels like, have not put a premium on those things or certainly tried to clean those areas up, which I don't get because for a team like the Twins, it should be one of the most important things.
So I have a stat on that too for you guys. So the Twins were like kind of league average in terms of taking the extra base on the base paths. It wasn't a total train wreck, but if you have a chance to move more than one base on a single or more than two bases on a double when possible, what percentage of the time do you take that extra base? And the Twins were at 42%, which was right around league average. You know who the top three consisted of? The Tigers, number one.
Yeah.
The Royals, number three. And Cleveland was also in the top 10.
Yeah, and that's the difference.
It's like, well, how are the Tigers, how are they?
Right.
It's the margins. The Twins are bad in the margins. And that's why you overhaul your spring training philosophy.
Exactly. That it's not even the fact of let's go steal more bags. I get what Judd's saying there. It is the low hanging fruit, the easy thing to obtain, to look at. But it's also why they're on the field an hour earlier. It's why they're changing up everything and making it mandatory that everyone is out there. And I actually applaud. I know you can look back at the previous years, like what were you doing during then? You've taken something, you're implementing it, you're learning from your previous mistakes. I applaud the initiative, and we'll see, obviously, what the results may be. A few more things here on the SKOR North Twin Show. I do have a random twin for you guys as well on Harrison Bader. So he is going to get the bulk of his time in left field. And Rocco, who I've had conversation with him, I've had conversations with Austin Martin too, that playing left field at Target Field is not an easy job. And Rocco said, quote, at our ballpark, when you're talking about the corners, left field is a much bigger playing surface than right field. So I think putting one of the best outfielders in left field in Harrison Bader, as opposed to right, makes some sense. Bader also discussed the fact of, hey, I want to play. So even though I have primarily played center fielder, being a center fielder his whole life, he's won a Gold Glove. He's willing to play that left field spot. And going back to the defensive runs saved, I mean, I didn't go back and look at this. I meant to do this. It was on my notes to go see. I can't remember the last time the Target Field era they had even a guy that was playing every day in left that was a +5, +10 in defensive runs. Like, they have had some butchers on the left side. Now it helps when you have Buxton, and Kepler was also a very good right fielder. Like, you can sacrifice some problems to left to a degree. But Harrison Bader playing left, Buxton in center, most likely Matt Wallner getting, I think, more of the bulk of the time in right with his cannon of an arm. I think that'll be most likely your opening day lineup in the outfield portion of it.
Well, good thing Saber Mackey is here with your statistical viewpoint. So to validate your observation about left field defense last year, in left field alone, the Twins were a -11 defensive runs saved to league average, which was third worst in all of baseball. For context, the best left field defensive teams in the league were +22, +17, and oh look, Cleveland +12. There's Cleveland in the margins again. How
Typical
are those
Mackey
Gardos
in the
random
margins.
Guardians?
In the margins, Mackey.
Guardian show.
Defensively in left field alone, the Guardians were worth 23 runs more than the Twins were. And if you expand that to the entire outfield, now Buxton, when he plays, he's regarded sabermetrically as an above average defensive outfielder, but he's 30 years old. It's not the same. He's not covering the same ground. He's not making all the same plays as he did like 3 years ago. So he is a positive force. Almost everybody else that the Twins put out there in the outfield seemed like a minus defensively. So the Twins last year as a total defense in the outfield were a -22 defensive runs saved. The top teams in baseball are like a +50, +48. So again, you're to the top teams in baseball defensively alone in the outfield. The Twins are giving 70 runs to the field. So how are you making up that deficit? Base running, nope. Clutch hitting with 2 outs, runners in scoring position, nope.
Nothing but strikeouts. Strikeout every hitter.
Yeah,
that's all we want.
So they've got. It's not like the White Sox where they just don't have players. There's just the White Sox show up at the bottom of all these lists because they have a terrible organization of talent. The Twins don't. The Twins have some talent. They need some speed and some athleticism. And that's where some of these young guys come in. Like if some of these dudes who are at the top of their prospect list, some of those guys are athletes and they can come in and help this problem.
But this is a very bizarre thing. So explain to me why a team that prides itself on the metrics and like being smart, like some of this stuff is now common sense stuff. Like the Margot acquisition defensively was a disaster. But it's like, how have they gone this long? And Baldelli's not wrong. I mean, left field, you got to cover ground with this amount of butchers there. Like, how do you not say, you know what we should do? Shore up the left field defense. It's not that hard.
And it's not that hard to identify the problem. I think it is harder to all right, you got to make sure you got players coming through your system. Also, there's the development. This is a whole thing. It's like development process from A ball up to AA. But what's funny is referencing the Metrodome era, Terry Ryan, Ron Gardenhire Twins, and I'm as guilty as anyone. To their faces when I covered those teams, I'd get in arguments about analytics because they basically had, it was like Jack Goen was their one analytic guy. And I love Jack and he's awesome, but it's like he was like a one-man department. And you had the A's and the Red Sox and eventually the Cubs and the Guardians and all these teams with these mathematicians in their front offices. But what's funny is even when the Twins knew nothing about modern analytics in baseball, guess what they were great at? Things in the margins. They were great at base running. They were great at fielding. They were great at hitting the ball the other way in situations where it made sense. They were great corner outfield defense.
Yes.
So it's funny how analytics, and we are a very analytical friendly show here, but we just, I guess, used analytics to show where the Twins are terrible in the margins, and it's time for them to clean it up.
Last thing here before the random twin. So this is what Carlos Correa is doing to prevent any flare-ups in his feet that have caused him issues. I even saw, I don't think he's wearing true cleats at spring training right now. I saw a weird picture that he's wearing different type of Nikes, not true cleats, which is a little interesting to see. I know he was running on concrete and doing these random things, but here's what he's doing. This is from the Star Tribune. I need to take care of my Achilles, my calf, my hamstring, and so on. It's not only the plantar. I have to go all the way up to the kinetic chain. That's something I'm focusing on. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money and effort. And at the same time, I want to be out there every single day. So that ankle, that was a ticking time bomb for two teams that were like, can't do it. This is not just plantar fasciitis. This is a whole thing that he is doing to make sure that the entire lower half of his legs, not legs, are working appropriately.
Mackey's eyes almost popped out of his head. I read that yesterday, and I'm like,
is he 82 years old? This is why. Yeah. This is why two teams' medical staffs looked at him 3 years ago and said, I don't know, man. Well, I don't know if we can proceed with a contract here.
There's a very good chance, gentlemen, that we are going to have to get our heads around at some point soon. He's not a shortstop now. Like, he's brilliant out there, but I don't know.
Could he play third? Because, I mean, he agreed to play third with the Mets, right? Before they ixnayed the...
And I just saw a piece by Joel Sherman of the Post a couple of days ago that actually suggested that the Yankees now go and trade for Carlos again to play third base there. But like what Declan just read and went through, I'm sorry, but I don't know if you have to do all of that. I don't know if you can be a shortstop for like four years down the road.
You know what else too? Because his bat would play at any. If he can stay on the field, his bat does play for sure at third. I think his bat could play at first if he's trying to stay
eventually
in a lineup into his mid-30s. Yeah, getting him off the most spacious infield defensive position is probably the move.
Yeah.
But the problem for the Twins is they've kind of deemed that Royce Lewis is not a shortstop defensively long term, and they're trying to make him a viable defensive third baseman. If you were to say, all right, listen, for the rest of what's Correa got, like 3 years, 4 years left on that deal.
Yep.
He's and I don't think they're having this guy. I think he's a shortstop right now. But if they get to the point where, yeah, let's move him over, cover a little less ground. You're kind of working in a smaller box there at third base. That's where you need Brooks Lee to be your shortstop because they don't really have anyone else. Willie Castro is not a good defensive shortstop. No, I guess you could put Royce there just kind of temporarily, but then I guess Royce would become your second baseman long term. But that's where the importance of Brooks Lee developing quickly becomes imperative.
If the Yankees called you today, what would they have to? And you know that this is sort of a ticking time bomb now. What would they have to offer up, just approximately, for you to say, okay, let's talk?
Well, assuming with potentially new ownership coming in, that you would not just save the $35 million in your pocket.
I'm saying you know something and they don't care about it.
I would say I don't know the Yankees' top prospect
I'd have to think about it.
But if the Yankees offered you one of their top, like they're not going to offer you one or two, but like if they offered you like two fringe top 10 prospects, and then you spent the $35 million whenever you could. I mean, it's a little late now for this season. This is probably more of a next winter conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like you make the trade before the deadline and then you spend the extra money. If you spend the money on a younger, healthier player that can give you 3 to 6 wins above replacement, like Carlos Correa has been good for.
Yeah,
I don't hesitate. He's not on the. He doesn't. Can you, with all the different ailments with his feet and ankles, and the fact that I think he just turned 30, right? Like a few months ago. So,
yes.
Oh man.
Yes.
I don't know.
Shout out to Kieran's. How about you walk over to Kieran's, Carlos? You can enjoy a cold one with me. We can talk about all these crazy things you're doing with your shock therapy. Kieran's just steps away from Target Center, Target Field for game day specials as well. We'll have a fun little announcement about Kieran's coming up here on the SKOR North Twins Show that we'll announce at a later date. But it's a great place to enjoy some great food and great drinks before or after Wolves or Twins games. Go stop into Kieran's, just steps away from Target Center and Target Field.
Also, this weekend, the North American Banking Company Minnesota Golf Show is happening Friday, so tomorrow through Sunday at the Minneapolis Convention Center. And you can buy tickets online. If you buy them online at mngolfshow.com, you get 10 free greens fee passes. So you get a bunch of free golf. And on Saturday, Purple Daily, the three of us are going to be recording. I guess it's a Purple Daily Unplugged, technically. And John Randall is going to hang out with us on site. So come on up to the convention center this weekend, hang out with us, and explore great deals on golf apparel and equipment. Check out the latest clubs and other golf-related things, free lessons out there too. So North American Banking Company, Minnesota Golf Show, mngolfshow.com.
All right, random twin for you guys coming at you here on the SKOR North Twin Show. You can hit the like button, subscribe button too for Minnesota Twins content. Excited to lead this one here on our random twin. Some of the previous random twins we have done throughout the year. Last week I lost on Terry Mulholland. Shane Mack, Scott Stahoviak, Chuck Knobloch, Denny Hawking, Gio Urshela are some of the older ones we have done in weeks past on Random Twin, all throughout a series of clues. Are you guys ready?
Let's get this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Judd is 21 all-time wins. Dex with 24. I have 26. Looking to expand the lead here. No Googling, Judd. No cheating.
I won't cheat. Don't need to cheat lately.
Oh,
this random twin received MVP votes in 3 different seasons. The first year he received MVP votes, he had the same amount of votes as David Ortiz, Alex Rodriguez, and Mark Teixeira. I'll put you on a scent here at least kind of early.
Yeah, very nice of you. I like it. Okay.
This random twin was an all-star and also won a Gold Glove.
Pretty good baseball player.
You haven't said how much of this came with the Twins, though, have you?
I'm going
like
to control F search here.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to get my list up right now because I've saved it finally after all these years of not saving it. Okay.
That's nope.
I feel like this might be a brilliant curveball. With a bit of a hint mixed in.
This random twin led the Twins in WAR in 3 different seasons.
Oh boy, you gave it away. Okay. A-Rod. Was A-Rod still good then? I don't think so.
This random twin of the week has 1 postseason home run to his name.
Brian Dozier.
Ding, ding, ding. What? Brian Dozier. What a pull from Judd. Good
Brian
Lord.
Dozier.
I thought I'd get a couple more clues out there.
That's funny. So Dex was trying to make this guy sound like a better player than Dozier in his clues. Which
it was
is
good.
Brilliant. Nice job, Judd. 3 straight wins for Judd.
Where am I at?
Wow. Well, 3 straight wins for the first time since you rolled off Carlos Gomez, Marty Cordova, and Grant Balfour. You're up to 22 all-time wins, just 2 back of Declan and 4 back of me.
Wow,
We're on a roll right now, man.
I'm climbing back slowly but surely.
Judd's other 3+ week winning streaks are Mike Pelfrey, Darren Mastriani, and Joe Creedy. And then he also had a Glenn Williams, Craig Breslow, Dave Winfield, Drew Butera 4-week run.
Wow.
Back in the day.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So nice little run for Judd. I guess I'm giving the clues next week. Losers out.
We I was trying to figure out who to do, and we were texting about Dozier last night, and I was like, oh, this will be great. And then yes, I had the idea of I'm going to make him sound like he was a badass. And Dozier was solid. He was a very solid player for the Twins, but I was trying to get you guys off the set.
For like 2.5 months at a time, he'd be the best player in baseball.
Yep.
Yeah,
and then he would be unplayable for the rest of the season. Like 180, just complete. It was one of the hot, cold hitters in Twins history.
Amazing. Hey, hit the like button, subscribe button here on the SKOR North Twin Show. We'll have content throughout spring training. We'll have more content as opening day gets closer. Appreciate you guys listening and watching and supporting the SKOR North Twin Show. We'll be back soon.